Hello. In today's training, I will show you typical steps needed to update your project to newer software version. I'll also show you how to configure and maintain software version and release compatibility. Current version of IndraWorks Engineering software installed and active on my laptop is 14v20 patch 2. So let's start my test program prepared with this version. We can always verify active software version in Help menu. We can open properties of our project to see actual configuration and very important settings called compatibility mode. Another important project setting is PLC compiler version, and it must match compatibility mode. We can also check the firmware configured for this project. And we can see that firmware version is 14v20p2 and it's matching compatibility mode and our software version. We can switch our project online and check properties of our control. We can see here that firmware in control also matches our compatibility mode, project firmware, and software version. Now we can switch our PLC online and see our logic running fine. Next step, we'll check software version of our HMI multi-touch panel VDP15. We can see that device version is 14v20 and it is matching our project. Now we can activate our HMI panel simulation and run our test program. If your machine uses standard HMI screens VPP40, we can also check properties, device version, activate standard screen simulation, and run our test program. So we have our running machine and we get information that there is a new software version with some new or improved functions and some bug fixes. This new version is 14v22 patch 5 and we'll close our software and install new version. We go to directory with our software installation and click on Setup File. And then we select our active 14v20 version to be updated. Please note that in version 15, with XM42 control, update screens look a little different. But the result is the same. Now, after update, we will start our new version of IndraWorks Engineering and open again our test program. Please note an additional description next to the project file. It says Compatibility Mode 14v20p2, and when we look into project messages, we can see that our project was created and now is edited with older version of software. We can connect and go online with our machine still running old firmware 14v20p2. We can also log in Edit, Download, and run PLC program still using old version. So we can edit old programs with new version, but in order to get new functions or bug fixes, we need to update our program and machine to new version. Our first step will be a change of the compatibility mode. Please note that this change cannot be undone. So my recommendation is to keep our original program unchanged and use the copy for update. Now we'll change our compatibility mode to new version 14v22p5. We also adapt PLC compiler to this new version. It will take a couple seconds to convert our program, and when it's finished, there is no additional description next to project file. Next step we need to do is assign new firmware to our project. So we go to Control Properties, then Configuration, and then Firmware Release. Here we select latest firmware version 14v22p5. Now when we try to go online with our control, we immediately get firmware conflict error. When we look into detailed information for this error, we can see that our firmware in control unit must be updated to new version. Please be aware that during firmware update, data stored in control will be erased. So we recommend to make control archive before firmware change. To download new firmware, we need to access Firmware Management menu. Here we select latest firmware version and start download. Please make sure that your supply voltage to the control is not interrupted during the firmware download. In version 15 with XM42 control, our firmware management menu looks a little different. And here the same, we need to select new firmware and start download. After firmware download is finished, control will reboot and go back online. Now we can use restore function to put data back into control. Please be aware that after updating firmware to MTX macro, we need to make additional step and select operating language. Now we go back to our updated project and run our PLC program. Next will be our HMI, but it is still configured to run old version 14v20. So we'll open Properties menu and change device version to 14v22. Now we can run our HMI. And we can test our updated machine. Thank you for your attention.